The notification didn't ping. It thudded, a heavy haptic sensation that vibrated through the metal desk and settled deep in Elias's bones. In a world where every digital interaction was smoothed over by the algorithm, where video calls were color-corrected in real time and voice messages were auto-tuned to sound more empathetic, roughness was a commodity. Elias was a grit farmer. That was the street name for it. Anyway, his official title was Authenticity Consultant. Wealthy clients who lived their lives in the pristine, sterilized metaverse paid him to inject flaws into their digital footprints. He added grain to their photos, inserted awkward pauses into their speeches, and typos into their love letters, all to prove they were still human in an era where artificial intelligence had perfected the art of being polite. But tonight, Elias wasn't working. He was staring at a video file that had just been flagged by his crawler, a piece of content that shouldn't exist. The video was 3 seconds long. It showed a rainy street corner, the asphalt slick in reflecting neon blue light. A person in a yellow raincoat stood there, humming a melody that felt vaguely familiar. Something pre-collapse, maybe Beatles or Nirvana, stripped of its rhythm. Then, the figure sneezed. It wasn't a cute, cinematic sneeze. It was violent, ugly, and followed by a jagged intake of breath and a muttered curse word that was muffled by the wind. Elias froze. The algorithm filtered out ugly biological functions from public feeds instantly. A sneeze like that was considered a glitch, a disruption of the user experience. For that video to bypass the filters meant one of two things. Either Elias was looking at the most sophisticated hacker in the Northern Hemisphere, or the world was breaking. He needed to find the source. Causality kicked in. Because the sneeze was unfiltered, the metadata had to be raw. Elias pulled up the code behind the video. Usually, a location tag was a clean, sanitized set of coordinates pointing to a cloud server in Nevada or Iceland. But this tag was dirty. It pointed to a physical IP address, hardwired and stationary. It wasn't in a server farm. It was in the Rust Belt. A massive dead zone where the smart grid had been turned off to save energy for the coastal megacity. Elias felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. He didn't want the money this footage could fetch on the black market. He wanted to know who else was out there, living ugly, unfiltered lives. He grabbed his coat reel wool, itchy and smelling of mothballs, and walked out of his temperature-controlled apartment. The journey was the first obstacle. His car, an automated pod, refused to set a destination for the dead zone. Route dangerous, the dashboard voice cooed, its tone soothingly condescending. Connectivity low. Please select a verified destination. Elias popped the dashboard panel. He wasn't just a grit farmer. He was a historian of the analog age. He jammed a manual override chip into the port, a jagged piece of plastic he'd bought from a scavenger. The car shuddered. The smooth blue ambient lighting turned a harsh emergency red, and the steering column unlocked. For the first time in a decade, Elias put his hands on a wheel. He drove. Leaving the city felt like swimming upstream. The advertisements on the holographic billboards tracked his eye movement, begging him to turn back, offering discounts on dopamine inhibitors and virtual vacations. But as he crossed the perimeter, the lights died. The silence of the dead zone was deafening. There were no hums of data centers, no drones overhead, just the sound of tires crunching on neglected asphalt. The conflict shifted from man versus machine to man versus himself. Without the constant feed of the internet in his neural link, Elias felt the withdrawal, the quiet panic of being unconnected. He had to fight the urge to turn around, to go back to the warm, fake embrace of the city. He kept driving until the coordinates led him to a dilapidated shopping mall, a relic of the 20th century, half swallowed by ivy. He parked and walked through the shattered glass doors. The air smelled of mold and wet concrete. He followed the signal on his handheld scanner, walking past empty storefronts that once sold fast fashion and pretzels. The signal led him to the center of the atrium, where an old fountain stood dry and cracked. Sitting on the edge of the fountain was the figure from the video. The yellow raincoat was real, plastic and bright against the gray decay. The person had their back to him, tinkering with a massive jury-rigged antenna made of copper wire and satellite dishes. "You're real," Elias said, his voice cracking. He hadn't used his actual vocal cords at full volume in days. The figure turned around. It was a woman, maybe 30, with tired eyes and wind-chapped lips. She looked at him, not with fear, but with annoyance. "You blocked my upload," she said. Her voice was raspy. "I didn't block it." Elias stepped closer, his boots crunching on the debris. "I found it. The system should have erased it." "How did you get it past the filters?" She wiped her nose with her sleeve, a gesture so human it made Elias's chest ache. "I didn't try to get it past anything. I'm not broadcasting to the city. I'm broadcasting to the others." "The others?" Elias asked. "The leftovers," she said, gesturing to the shadowy corners of the mall's second floor. Elias looked up. He saw the glow of small fires. There were people there. Dozens of them. Old, young, families. They were cooking over camping stoves, reading physical books, talking without headsets. "The algorithm maximizes for engagement," the woman explained, turning back to her antenna. "Happiness, anger, lust, high arousal states. But it filters out the mundane, the boredom, the sickness, the grief. It decided those things weren't optimized for attention. So, it ghosted us. If you aren't perfect, You don't exist in the digital space. But we came here. Elias realized the causality of the entire society he lived in. The king died, and then the queen died. That was history. But the algorithm saw the queen died of grief as a downer, so it edited the grief out. It left a society of smiling sociopaths. I sell grit, Elias confessed. I fake what you people are actually living. I charge a fortune for it. The woman laughed, a dry, cynical sound. You sell the aesthetic of struggle to people who have never felt cold. That's not grit. That's cosplay. I want to help, Elias said. The desire was sudden and overwhelming. He didn't want to document them. He wanted to protect this. The crawler that found your video. It alerts the cleanup drones. If I saw it, the sanitation department saw it. They'll be here in less than an hour to optimize this zone. The woman dropped her wrench. The conflict was no longer philosophical, it was physical. We can't move. We have elders here. The equipment, you don't have to move, Elias said. He looked at her antenna. It was powerful, but it was broadcasting on a frequency the city ignored. We need to do the one thing the algorithm hates. We need to overwhelm it with mediocrity. Elias ran to his car and grabbed his rig, the high-end transmitter he used to upload his files to the wealthy clients. He hauled it to the fountain. Plug me in, he ordered. What are you doing? She asked, connecting her copper wires to his sleek, military-grade terminal. The system filters out anomalies, Elias said, his fingers flying over the haptic keyboard. But it can't filter out a deluge. If we upload one sneeze, it's a glitch. If we upload 10 million sneezes, coughs, stutters, and awkward silences all at once, the algorithm will try to categorize it. It will freeze. It's a logic loop. You're going to crash the internet with boredom, she asked, a smile tugging at her corner of her mouth. I'm going to remind them that they're human, Elias said. He hit the upload key. The connection between the rusty antenna and the high-tech rig sparked. The fans on his computer screamed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in the distance, towards the city skyline glowing on the horizon, the lights flickered. Inside the city, millions of users suddenly experienced a jarring shift. The beauty filters dropped. The auto-tune failed. For the first time in years, people saw their friends pause. They heard the crack in their mothers' voices. They saw the bags under their lovers' eyes. The feed was flooded not with hyper-stimulating content, but with the raw, unedited footage of the people in the mall eating soup, sleeping, staring at walls, existing. It wasn't a revolution of violence, it was a revolution of empathy. Back in the mall, the drone hum never came. The system was too busy trying to process the sudden influx of low-quality humanity. Elias sat back against the dry fountain, exhausted. The woman sat next to him, passing him a tin cup of instant coffee. It was lukewarm and tasted like metal. It's terrible, Elias said, taking a sip. Yeah, she said, looking at him with eyes that were tired, dark and beautiful, because they were real. It is. Elias looked at his hands. They were dirty. He didn't need to add grain to this moment. The arc was complete. He had spent his life fabricating reality for ghosts. Now, he was sitting in the ruins, drinking bad coffee, and for the first time, he was the main character of his own story. The inciting incident was a sneeze. The resolution was a cup of coffee, and the change, he finally understood that the flaw wasn't the error in the code. The flaw was the code itself. He took another sip and smiled. He wasn't going back.